Hello, everybody. Welcome to the another episode of the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is a podcast where I talk about pretty much everything Evil Geniuses, and I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. Um, actually have I don't know. It's been a busy and a slow week all at the same time. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe slightly less than normal. Yeah, it's kind of up in the air. But to kind of get things started. League of Legends, we're going to be talking about it's kind of a recurring topic because the EG, most of EG's roster, four of their players have been officially released from the team. So we will be kind of rehashing that from last week as well. Just kind of talking about it now that it's an official thing, and we know exactly which players are gone and who's staying. And then as for Dota 2, my lights are flickering. I'm sorry about that. As for Dota 2, we're going to be discussing the Berlin Major, where the group stage has actually just finished. So we're going to be talking about EG's progress throughout the group stage and how things are looking heading into playoffs. Um, and then as for Valorant, literally, not even like 20 minutes ago or so, the Valorant team just finished playing against Leviathan. Um, in their VCT best of three. So we will be discussing the best of three, discussing the team in general, how their playoff, can they make playoffs? Where does this team fall in terms of expectations over the next couple of weeks? What's their schedule looking like, et cetera, et cetera. And then as for the Counter Strike portion, we're going to be talking about the fact that EG's CSGO team, their main roster, has actually started boot camping out in, I don't know where they are exactly. I don't know if it's Europe or somewhere maybe closer to Asia. I don't know. I would assume Europe. Not sure where in Europe though. But I know they're boot camping, and so people have been reacting to EG's games that they've been playing. Um, their boot camp literally just started, so they're getting prepared for IEM Dallas, and we're going to be talking about not only the game that they played that has been receiving a lot of criticism, but also their upcoming matches, or at least the upcoming match that's coming up tomorrow, or if you're watching this on Monday, it's today. Um, and we're going to be discussing, the criticism that the roster has received and why I feel like it's unjustified at this moment in time, or why some of it is unjustified in this moment of time. I should rephrase. Um, and yeah, so without further ado, let us get started. I'm so sorry, my lights are completely bugging out right now. I definitely should fix that. Um, League of Legends. League of Legends. So as for League of Legends, we have got some massive news. This was news that was kind of already being hinted at. Um, it was being hinted at um, around, let's say, about a week ago or so, maybe longer. But it is confirmed to be true that EG actually posted a little um, a celebratory video thanking Vulcan-inspired Someday and FBI for their contributions to the organization, but that they are no longer a part of the LCS squad for the summer split. I've already had my I've already had my thoughts expressed on why I think this is just simply due to due to the recession, due to the fact that they've lost sponsors and that they don't really care about competitive integrity or not integrity, but competitive, performances. Because if they did, they would have kept this roster together. Because this roster has everything that you need to succeed, and they, look, EG as an organization has had a really really bad past 4 months. Um, the players were getting sick and we're getting COVID and we're playing in on stage, not playing on stage. There was a lot of reasons why this team just did not end up performing the way that we were hoping that they were going to um, this split. So I was under the assumption that nothing would change. I think everyone was, but due to costs, I would imagine. They've decided to drop pretty much the entire roster except for JoJo Pyun, which begs the question, what players are they going to sign? That is a question I am not so sure of. I know our friend over at the Live Evil Pod, who focuses a lot more on the League of Legends aspects of Evil Geniuses, has talked about potential moves and what players might be joining the team. So I would suggest checking that out. I'm not going to I don't want to discuss any of that because obviously he can do all the explaining for me. He's a lot more knowledgeable than I am, and yeah, so show him some love. Um, but it raises a lot of question marks with how this team is going to look into the summer split. Is this going to be a team that's even remotely competitive in the summer split? We have no idea. I don't know who's going to be scouting players. I don't trust the management. I question we've fired coaches. I think Freeze is no longer a part of the LCS coaching staff. It begs to question: do we even have the personnel to make the right decisions to hire the right or to sign the right players? If you're going to do a cost saving thing, look, I don't like it because you're evil geniuses and you're supposed to sign the best talent. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it right. You need to do the proper scouting. And if you can have really good scouting, then you can do that. It's what EG used to do when they had Peter Dunn, but then they kicked Peter Dunn, or Peter Dunn decided to leave. I'm not sure which one it was. I would assume from the outside looking in, it looks like Peter Dunn was promised control over certain things and was not given said control. Okay. I think we're back. So, sorry about that. I'm not sure why that keeps happening when I've been streaming recently, but I think we should be good now. Um, so back to what I was saying. Um, oh my gosh, what was I saying? um, yeah, just lots of question marks when this was the team to support. Makes you question if this team's even going to be competitive in the summer split. Um, and I feel very worried for JoJo. I don't know what kind of system he's going to get put into. Is he going to like his teammates? Are they going to get along? Is he going to perform to the level that we want him to? I don't know. To me, EG has been the story of claiming they care about talent development and not really living up to that promise in any manner whatsoever. So across pretty much every esport they're in. So I just really hope they don't fuck this up for JoJo and end up derailing his career. If that ends up being the case, I would much rather JoJo Pyun leave and go somewhere where he is actually respected and not just seen as a valuable marketing piece to sign more sponsors. Um, so yeah, very strange. I'm not sure what to expect. I'm extremely nervous for the future of this team at this point. Very concerned, but the best we can do is just hope and pray that uh, somebody hires the right people to join this team and that things get better. Because this was supposed to be, I was excited for the LCS this year because this was supposed to be the year of, okay, look, things kind of got derailed in the second half of the year. Little did we know the whole Danny situation was going down. We were playing with substitutes and whatnot, and we still ended up being the best North American team at Worlds. This was supposed to be, we signed better players. We signed players that fit, that really, we lost impact. That hurt, but we at least got someday who it may not be a one for one, but is very about as close as you're going to get to a one for impact. This was supposed to be the year that EG was going to just kind of dominate the LCS or at least do very, very well. Um, this was kind of going to be like our 100 Thieves when 100 Thieves was just constantly going to LCS finals. Like, that's what I expected out of this EG team. And now that it's all fallen apart, I'm extremely nervous. I'm extremely nervous. So, best we can do, all we can do is hope and pray. So, um, if any more news comes out regarding the next few, the players that EG is going to sign or whatnot, obviously we'll talk about the League of Legends division a little bit more. But as for now, unfortunately, this is all we have is a parting gift, which I did make the joke. They did give more attention and love to the LCS players that are leaving than when they got rid of their their Dota 2 team that is now Shopify Rebellion, um, which I think is just so telling about how EG cares about, how Nicole, I should say, after these last few articles that have come out, that Nicole cares much, much more about her version of Evil Geniuses and doesn't give a flying fuck about any of the original OG members of EG. Um, to her, they are nothing but old news, but uh, taint, even though she is the one who actually is that, which is the irony in the whole situation. But moving on, we probably I will briefly mention here. If you have not checked it out, Richard Lewis has been posting articles on EG and the things that have been going on within the organization over the past couple of years. Please go check that out. I'm not going to talk about it in this episode because I already talked about it in my previous video that I posted last week, called "Evil Geniuses: A Fall from Grace." Um, I've mentioned the articles and they're actually posted. They're posted there in the description, or go to Richard Lewis's Twitter, and you can scroll through and find the articles there. They're on his Substack. I highly recommend that you read them because it gives a lot of context and understanding as to not just what happens within individual esports divisions, but the overall philosophy of Evil Geniuses and how they treat their employees. So please give that a look. Um, all right, without further ado, let's move on. I almost hit stop. I almost hit stop streaming. That was almost bad. Um, let's move on to the Dota 2. I can't even spell Dota 2. Let's see. ESL 1 Berlin. So, all right. So EG has been playing at ESL 1 Berlin at the major. It has been a very tumultuous path. Um, they started off doing pretty well, but things got progressively worse. Um, as the matches have continued, and at one point it was looking like um, they were not going to make it to the playoffs. They started off with a 1-1 tie against Gaming Gladiators, who, for those who don't remember, Gaming Gladiators is probably one of the best teams in the world right now. They won the Dream League, which was the event that happened about a week or so ago, against Team Liquid. They won in the finals. So yeah, Gaming Gladiators is an extremely good team. They tie them. That's a good start. They 2-0 Execration, um, which was a solid win, but then they get 2-0'd by PSG, um, which PSG didn't play in Dream League. I don't know if that was potentially played a role in them having a little bit of an advantage in this group stage, having some videos to look at, all the teams that were in, because even Team Liquid, for example, started off very poor at the Berlin Major group stage. They had finished strong, but at first it was looking very rough for them, and they made the finals of Dream League. So the Asian teams didn't play, so there's a little bit of I question that somewhat. I don't know how good the Asian teams actually are. Um, so we'll see with time, I suppose. They ended up playing TSM after that. TSM is a good team, not a great team. They ended up tying TSM, so not the best result. And then they played Bet Boom, and they tied them as well. So, and that was for the tiebreaker, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think the TSM and Bet Boom games were uh, potentially, I think those might have been a part of the last chance to get into the group stage or to get into the playoffs. So yeah, very shaky. They end up finishing out as 8-8. They end up being at the bottom half so they're in the lower bracket of the playoffs. They will have to play against the loser of Shopify Rebellion and Nine Pandas. So I don't really know too much about Nine Pandas, to be completely honest with you. It looks like a bunch of Serbian players, maybe. Oh no, Russian players. So it looks like a Russian team. In terms of how they've performed so far, they were the second best team in EG's group. They went 10-6. So potentially a difficult matchup, but I think it's kind of hard to tell how it's going to go. Shopify Rebellion also went 10-6. I think Shopify Rebellion should probably win that game, but just off of experience. But we'll see. And Shopify Rebellion has also gone farther into tournaments. They made it deeper. They made it relatively deep into the Dream League event. So, or very deep into the Dream League event. They didn't win it. They didn't go to the finals, but they were very close. So overall, I think Shopify Rebellion probably, in theory, should be favored to win that game, but it's hard to tell. So who knows? If Shopify Rebellion loses, we could have the El Clasico continue of Shopify Rebellions versus EG, which honestly isn't really turning into much of an El Clasico when you start to realize that Shopify Rebellion has pretty much had EG's number every single time they've played. So we will see how that goes. Overall, shaky. At least they made it to the playoffs, not in the position you'd want them to be in, but at the very least, they're there. It was very nerve wracking. They were very close to not being there, and so that would have been a massive disappointment, especially in the biggest event leading up to TI. So, yeah, just kind of scary, but it worked out. We'll see how they do. Um, and I will keep you guys updated. I believe they play. Let's see, when do they play their their lower bracket round one match? May 2nd. So that will be on Tuesday at about 1:05 Eastern time. So we will we'll see how that goes, guys. Best of luck to them. Like I said, if you guys haven't been watching the YouTube channel, they've been posting on EG's YouTube channel for Dota 2. They have been posting little like behind the or not behind the scenes videos, but kind of like vlog, documentary type videos. They're all in Spanish, but they're very good. So I highly recommend you guys check those out if you want to learn about the Dota team, the Dota 2 team a little bit more, because they are quite a good team. They are a very good team. So please check them out. They're one of the best teams. They are now our best team. They're our best division that EG has right now in their esports division. It's definitely them. I mean, I'm also not including the fighting division with Sonic Fox, but yeah, you get my point. Um, Moving on, we will now. We're moving pretty quick through this because there's really not a lot of news, to be completely honest, with some of these teams. But VCT Americas, EG. Oh geez, I don't know how to do this. EG versus Leviathan. This was a certified banger of a game, and it just finished. Just finished. EG taking the dub, a massive win for the Valorant team. I cannot stress that enough. A massive win. Literally, if they had lost this game, they would not be even having a remote chance of going to playoffs. But now they have a chance. There's hope. It's still there because VCT Americas has been so back and forth between so many different teams that EG, even though they are 2-4, I think, they still have a chance to make playoffs, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. But they do. And this was a big win. This was going to be one of their hardest games for this last like 5 or so week period, 4 to 5 week period, or whatever, however many weeks it is left, and they got this win, and that's massive, especially after the frankly just soul wrenching losses they had against Furia and against Loud, where it really felt like they could have won and should have won both of those series, but just couldn't close in the end on both of them. So obviously, people are gonna say, well, EG shouldn't have won against Loud. They got 13-0'd. Well, they should have won map 2, so that would have been a 2-0. Yeah, just thank God that they won this. They really needed it, and it felt like they won 3 matches with this one win because just of how hard they have worked to get to this point. When you've had that many, you're the first team to get 13-0, but you've been this close to beating the best teams, some of the best teams in the league. You got to remember, Fury at the time that EG played them were considered potentially a top 2 to 3 team in the league. So, to be that close to beating these teams, like, it must have hurt losing, um, surely. And so this was a massive win. In terms of the map pool and the performances of the players and whatnot, I was really worried about this veto going into the series, because they allowed Leviathan to get two of their best maps, Pearl and Ascent. They are extremely good teams or they're an extremely good team on both of those maps. They are world class at those maps. So it was going to be it was pretty scary, honestly, seeing the veto. Split was a must win, and they ended up winning it. It was, I'm not going to lie, after the first half of Split, I was starting to think that maybe this was just going to be a wash. Leviathan was going to 2-0 EG. It was just going to be a really bad week, and they were going to start to deflate and taper off to the end of the this VCT thing. And then I was thinking about all the criticism that people like Potter have gotten, even though she doesn't deserve it. And I was thinking, oh God, we're gonna like drop Potter or something and act like that's somehow gonna fix things. Like I was really worried, honestly. And I know I was thinking ahead there, but just it's what I do. And because EG only got 4 rounds on their attack side on split, but they closed out, won a lot of key clutches. If it wasn't for these clutches, and you could argue Leviathan messed up a lot of post plant situations that they should have won, but regardless, EG made big plays. That momentum carried them, and once they were able to get the momentum on their side, they were closing out rounds a little bit more definitively, and they ended up winning the map 13-10. Jogamo with a standout performance on Raze. Like I keep saying, Jogamo on Raze is just his best agent by far. He is so good at that agent. Every time he plays Raze, he's amazing. Um, so that's just how it is, man, with Boostio. Um, Other strong performances, Demon 1 had a really strong performance as well. Boostio on the Astra, which is a little bit unexpected. Not a well, I mean, look, he has been playing Astra this league, this season. But it's still, to me, the agents that I felt like he was always the most comfortable on was either Jet or Sentinel. And so, yeah, but a lot of IGLs like playing controller, especially ones like Astra, because you are so focused on positioning of players and map and what's going on the map. And so, as the IGL, that's just natural to you. And so, it makes sense to play Astra as the IGL. So, that I assume that's part of the reason. The other reason just being probably just the comp you want to play. Um, and I really like their comp on this map. I still think double duelist. I don't know, but I think a lot of the a lot of the Jet players have been showing that you can somehow be a really good like Sentinel with Jet. With just the crazy movement that these players have now with Jet, like they're just able to get picks and get away so easily, making it nearly impossible for you to get trade kills. That like maybe if you have a good enough Jet player, it's viable. Um, but yeah, I think if you didn't have a Jet player like Demon One, I would say you'd probably want a KO somewhere on this roster. But other than that, I don't know. It's pretty fucking good, honestly. This comp looks pretty solid. EG's been a very good split team, so can't really complain. They gritted one out and they moved on to Pearl, which was a scary situation because the last time we played Pearl, we got 13-0'd by Loud. So I was a little bit anxious to see this, especially because Leviathan had picked this. And so I was a little worried that EG, I mean, I knew they were going to have obviously worked on their Pearl, and that I didn't think their Pearl was 13-0 against Loud bad, but I certainly didn't think it was that good, and I didn't think EG had a remote chance of beating Leviathan on this map heading into it. And it was a very close affair on the attack side of Pearl for EG at the first half. Ended up splitting it, I believe, 6-6, and then moving on into the defense half, it just fell apart. Sometimes it just felt like they were giving Leviathan too much space. Um, I don't know. It was just not the best, frankly. EG was able to win rounds here and there, but no consecutive rounds in a row. At the end of the game, they tried to get back into it, but the whole defense side just didn't really click for me. Um, so they're gonna want to have to look at that, but overall, not nearly as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I was thinking along the lines of a 13-7, so getting 13-10 is a good result overall. I don't think this was a map that EG was ever going, like, should have won. This wasn't a map that they lose 13-10, but they should have won the map. No, they definitely should have lost this map, but I do think that there were some positive signs, and hopefully, Boostio said in the post-game interview that Pearl is actually a good map for them when they're in scrims, but for some reason when they play on stage, it just hasn't really turned out that way. It leaves some question marks, obviously, that it puts into question, how do you fix something like that? That's a very difficult question to answer. So yeah, I'm not sure how Pearl is going to fit into EG's map pool in the future, but you can bet that pretty much every team is probably going to want to play Pearl against EG, because not only did they lose against Leviathan this week, even though Leviathan is a incredible Pearl team, um, getting 13-0'd on the map, it's just natural that teams are going to want to play that against you. So worried on that. They're going to still need to put in more work on Pearl. Com had a great map on the controller, actually. Um, so good for him, but again, man, Joggetmo on Harbor it just does not work for him, man. Maybe the util usage is okay, but like, dude, this guy, it's just he gets nerfed so hard when he isn't playing Jet, or I should say Raze. Um, it's unreal. So I again, the role issues, that has to play somewhat of a role. Last time they put, I think, Demon 1 on the Killjoy. This time they put him back on the Jet. He performed much better, with Boostio on the KJ. I think that makes more sense because, yes, it does mean, I think they did change some things up, because I think Calm was playing Sova before. I felt like he was playing Initiator or something the last time, and then Jogamo was playing Harbor, and then Boostio was playing like an Astra or something, and then Demon One was playing Killjoy. It was something like that. But they've changed it a little bit this time, and I like this comp better for them. It does still leave Jogamo on an uncomfortable role, but Ethan's playing Sky. Um, So he's playing a comfortable position, obviously, a comfortable agent, although he didn't perform very well. He's playing a comfortable agent nonetheless. Boostio on the Killjoy makes sense. He used to be a Sentinel player. Demon 1 on the Jet just makes sense as well. Calm on Smokes is different, but I think if you're going to put Calm on any controller, Viper makes a lot of sense. It's very similar to like a Sova, in terms of just having to have lineups and whatnot, and just being a nerd with utility, just kind of fits the Sova MO. So yeah, I think that's an okay role swap overall, and I think this is a better Pearl. Um, I think this is a better Pearl comp, especially because they're finally doing the Viper Harbor on Pearl, which is something that pretty much every other team, I believe, was doing, but for some reason EG just was always trying to do things differently, but they've finally gone and done the Viper Harbor. So hopefully this works out in the future. I think a lot of it will kind of come down to how Jogamo is able to adapt with Harbor. I know it's been plenty of time at this point probably to adapt. I don't know how much better he's going to get with it. He might have the occasional pop off on a map, but it's looking rough right now for Harbor Jogamo at the moment. Moving on to Ascent, um, we had a very dominant first half on Ascent, with a 9-3 on the first half of Ascent on the defense side, which is the stronger side of this map. Against Leviathan, it was looking good. At the end of the first half, I was still nervous because we're evil geniuses and we love throwing away leads. And sure enough, we almost did. Um, some very close rounds, but overall, Leviathan went on a, let's see, 6-1 run, before EG finally kind of stopped the bleeding and ended up winning the next 3 out of 4 rounds to close out the series. But it was getting a little bit close. It was getting very sketchy. Um, and at one point, I was pretty nervous that EG was going to blow it. But they didn't, thank God. Um, and yeah, it ended up being a really, really overall just a fantastic map and a fantastic series. Ethan was instrumental in this win, on Ascent, just getting opening kills and just creating havoc. He had a massive 4K in the B main area on defense side. on the attack side, he had multiple. He was entering into A. I mean, he was just doing God's work. And so Ethan was pretty much one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reason that EG was able to win. That EG was able to win this map. And Demon One was also fantastic. Demon One has been incredible. Nobody is giving Demon One enough credit for doing as well as he has, being a player who has never played on a LAN before. Like, he has been unreal. He has been unreal. This kid is incredibly talented. And not only is he incredibly talented, but it's transferring over into LAN performances, which I think is incredible. So, especially against a team like Leviathan and teams like Furia and Loud, he has had really good performances. So, I think this kid is incredible. This kid can really develop into something special. And I'm super excited for him. So, super happy with him being on the team. And yeah, super proud. Just really, really proud. Really cool to see a guy like this, just really stepping up and performing, um, when you need him. And he's been unreal as a young player. Like, he's been unreal at adjusting to the LAN environment. So a lot of credit goes to Demon One as well. Just how he's been the past couple of weeks. He's been incredible. So, lots of talent there to develop. Calm had an all right, good utility, but he had an all right, third map, and overall, even Boosty had a really good map. Jogamo still struggling in the smokes. They didn't. Here's one thing I did want to mention on their defense side: they didn't go for those same two plays that they did in the last time they played Ascent. The Jogamo TP onto the aggressive A wall ledge thing. He didn't do that, and they didn't do. Thankfully, this is the one that really pissed me off. They didn't do the Demon One throw a smoke outside of A main on defense and dash through it, and then try to also have other players in B main. I mean, sorry, in B main, and then like kind of peek together as a crunch, as a type of crunch onto the tiles area of the map. They didn't do those two, which I was very thankful for because I hated that thing, and I don't understand why they were doing it as often as they were because it's not that good. Um, it got blown up very easily, so glad they didn't do that. Um, and just overall, fantastic series. I'm so happy for them. The road ahead, though, is going to be a challenge. It will be a difficult road, but there is a chance. They kind of need to win out, but there is a chance. Sentinels is their first game coming up on the 6th, so next Saturday at 3 p.m. Um, that's a game that, although Sentinels has been playing with Marved and Marved has looked better, Sentinels has looked better with Marved than they did with Tens due to Tenz's personal problems that have been arising in his personal life and injuries and whatnot. Um, Sentinels overall has been a poor team in terms of results, and they did not have a very good result this week. So the hope is maybe EG can carry this momentum from this Leviathan game and transfer that over into the Sentinels match. Then they have their next game is against MIBR, a very winnable game. And then your last game is going to be your toughest against NRG, who is definitely one of the best teams in VCT. Although I don't know where their standings are. Um, let's see. In the standings, they're 3-3, so they're definitely one of the better teams. They actually are. They have a very positive delta. They're definitely one of the better teams. They are about on par as like your Leviathans and your loud, your Cloud9. They should be around that level. That's going to be a tough game to win. I don't think EG can make it with only winning two more games. I might be wrong, but I think they need three. Um, maybe they can do it with two and clinch those last two spots. It might be possible. If they only need to win 2 out of 3, I think they have a chance. If they have to win all three, it's going to be really hard to do, but there is a chance. And it mostly has to go down. It comes down to the fact that the VCT Americas League has just been so up and down with teams having good and bad results left and right. So we'll see. We'll see. But overall, a very strong win. Now there's things to play for. playoffs is in contention. It is still within our grasp. I can see it is there at the end of the tunnel. They just need to perform well enough to grasp it. So we will see if that happens. Best of luck to them. They're going to be playing Sentinels next week. Winnable game. I think if they lose, but if they lose the Sentinels or MIBR games, I think they're screwed. But we will see. We will see. Okay. I think without further ado, if my HLTV will load, because it did not want to load before. Let's start with EG Black. Let's start with EG Black because I think we should be able to get EG Black out of the way in not that much time. HLTV has been very slow for me today, so I could not load everything beforehand like I normally do. So forgive me for the extra time this is taking to pull everything up. But here we go. So also, by the way, guys, Kurrent's not going to be able to join me this time, unfortunately. He's just a bit busy, so yeah, he's not going to be able to show up this week, unfortunately. So I apologize, but yeah, it just wasn't able to happen this week. It happens. We all have our weekends. In fact, I'm actually going to have one situation next week where I probably won't be able to post a video next week because I'm actually going to my sister's graduation, so I probably won't be able to show up and post a video for next week, unfortunately. But we move on. Yeah, so EG Black played in ESL Challenger Melbourne 2023. They had worked very hard to qualify for it, and it was a LAN event. And I would say expectations were moderately high because although they haven't still seemingly not had a whole lot of practice, they have had extremely good results, and many fans have made this argument that EG Black is better than the main roster. At this point in time, that might be true. I would still argue that the main roster has far more potential than the EG Black does, but people probably wouldn't like that opinion. Not the point. The point is they played in this ESL Challenger Melbourne event. It was a LAN. They were in a let's see, relatively a doable group stage. They needed to be in the top two. They were in a group with Complexity, Ecstatic, and Greyhound. I think most people expected Complexity definitely to make it through the group, and then one other team to make it through, but nobody was sure who it was going to be. And to the surprise of everyone, Complexity didn't make it out of the group, and Greyhound and Ecstatic made it through. So very, very weird overall, but EGU did not make it. They did not win a single game, series, I should say, which is disappointing ultimately. It's ultimately disappointing. And I had even told Kurrent and you guys last week, I could see a world where EG Black makes it first out of the group, and I could see a world where EG Black goes last out of the group. And unfortunately, last out of the group is the world that we're living in right now. So, yeah, just kind of overall. Kurrent did tell me, yeah, the EG Black performance was pretty meh, and I agree with that. It wasn't that fantastic, honestly. What sucks about it, so the Greyhound match was bad. I didn't care for their game against Greyhound. They were down 11-4 on their CT side. It's pretty hard to come back from an 11-4 CT side. Or like when you're down, when you only get 4 rounds on your CT side on Inferno, it's pretty difficult to come back and win that game. Not only do you have to be making the right calls and the coordination to be very strong and you guys to just be hitting super hard, but you have to hope that the CT side really messes up and that they can't get the economy under their feet, because it's very difficult once that economy gets rolling to really stop them. And although EG did put up 6 T rounds, it just wasn't enough, and Greyhound was able to close on that best of one, which is the first game that they played. After that, they then had to go on and and play Ecstatic in the lower part of the group. And man, this was a heartbreaking one, man. This was heartbreaking. I really do believe if they had, I mean, obviously, if they had won Ancient, man, this literally would have been a 2-0 for EG, and they would have been moving on into their game against, who would they have played? That's a good question. I would imagine Complexity. I'd imagine Complexity. Or maybe yeah, I feel like they'd probably have to play Complexity or something. I'm not too sure. Not too sure who they would have had to play. I'm not going to lie. But they would have had a chance of making it into the semifinal. Didn't happen because they lost on Ancient, unfortunately. And it was a heartbreaking loss because they really should have won it. They really should have won Ancient. Hext was nuclear this map, dude. This map, he was insane. He was carrying this team so hard on this map. It was unreal. It was so good to watch Hex finally having a pop-off performance at LAN. Granted, against Ecstatic, but I'll take it, man. And he went 38 and 31, was unbelievable. Junior not too far behind, going 33 and 23. You know, and then you had George kind of in there as well. Walco playing relatively well, but yeah, man, that was the map they needed to win. It really was, and they went to overtime. You start getting into overtime, things become a game of endurance. Lots of close situations, 50-50s. You really got to work and outplay people, and it's hard to you know you got to keep pushing, and sometimes it can be difficult. EG just kind of ran out of steam. They just kind of ran out of steam, and it's a shame because if they had won that, they would have won the series 2-0. They would have been, potentially they would have had another game and more to play for, but just didn't end up happening. They ended up dropping Ancient, and I believe that's double overtime, 22-20. After they had what was the real quick? Let me look at this game a little bit closer. Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that. They had a really bad CT half. They had a really bad CT half. They only got 6 rounds on their CT side, which is quite poor. I mean, on your CT side, Ancient, you're supposed to get like 10, not even 10, more than that. You're supposed to get like 12. You're supposed to get like 11 to 12 rounds. That's where you want to be on your CT side of Ancient. They didn't get that, but they ended up having an incredible T side, but it just too little, too late. The CT sides, their CT side ended up being much better um, in overtime, but it was just too little, too late, and ended up dropping that map. Go on to Inferno, a map that EG is quite good at, and they proved it, having a very strong T side. You know, a 9-6 T side is incredible. But then all of a sudden the CT side starts, and like I said before, one of the ways that you can get caught off on your CT side is if you're not able to get the economy under you. And Ecstatic went on a, let's see here, 6-2 run, and suddenly you thought, man, we have a game here. But EG ended up closing out the rest of the rounds quite handily. Junior, great performance, 22 and 7. Walco 20 and 6, or I'm sorry, Junior was 22 and 14. My bad. I don't know what I was looking at sis for some reason. Walco 20 and 13, very strong from those two. Hex and George kind of just were relatively neutral, did their thing. Rush, great supportive element, 17 and 20. But yeah, just kind of overall, really Walco and Junior were the standouts for that map, and they ended up closing it out in the end. But yeah, actually, Hext was the biggest performer on that second half to kind of help close. He went 14 and 5 on the second half. So a big reason why EG was able to close out this game was him and Junior. So yeah, second map went well. Third map, this they just lost too many rounds here at the start of the game. They just got off to too slow of a start here. at one point at the start of the game, it was 5-1. Actually, I take that back. It was 7-1. EG ended up finishing the half with let's see here, a 9-6 half on your CT side of Vertigo. Not good. They win the first 3 rounds on their T side. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, we've got a game here. You're looking at a 9-9 game, and then suddenly Ecstatic just kind of runs on what Vertigo CT side is like, and they just kind of pick up some rounds, and EG's not able to come back into it, unfortunately, even though Junior had a fantastic performance in this map as well. 19-11. He was phenomenal during this event. But just unfortunately not enough. Hex didn't perform well enough. Walco's performance dropped. George did well, but just not. There wasn't enough there to carry them over the line, unfortunately. And if we look at the event and we look at the statistics, let's look at the players. Junior was actually the 4th highest rated player for the entire event. 1.21 rating in 4 maps. And the only players above him were Movie Star Riders players and the Movie Star Riders ended up winning the event. So, and to put it in perspective, Junior was the 4th best player. EG, in terms of rating, was the 6th best team. So, very strong performance from Junior. Just that's the biggest takeaway from this event is Junior performing extremely well at LAN. Still against tier 2 teams, but very strong performance on LAN. It's a great sign. That's what you want to see out of Junior. Hex had some good performances as well. This is why you want this team going to more LAN events, because you want this team, and just competing against European competition in general, because you want these guys to develop. You want them to develop. And the best way to develop is going to LANs and playing European Tier 2 competition, because it's stronger than NA. That's the best way to improve. And with EG's resources, they should be able to do it hopefully more often. And hopefully EG Black is able to continue to compete and qualify for these type of events so that they can participate in them, because they're very important on their development. All right. I think that's all I have to say about EG Black. So let's with my remaining, the little bit of voice that I have left, because I'm struggling to speak at this point. Let's discuss the main roster. EG Blue, as they like to call it. EG Blue. There wasn't really supposed to be too much to talk about with EG Blue at all, and there really isn't still, honestly. But they just started their boot camp. They're out in Europe boot camping, I assume. And things haven't been going to plan. Well, that's not necessarily true. I think things are going to plan. They literally just started their boot camp, which I think is massively important, because this is probably one of the most important boot camps that EG is going to have this year, because Refresh just joined the team. First time meeting him in person, I assume. Wiz and Nealon and Breeze and Automatic finally going out, getting ready to practice again, getting ready to develop that foundation that I've been talking about these past couple of weeks. Hopefully this is the time to do that. This is the time to develop layers in your game, to really just dig in deep, and actually build upon what you have. And so, yeah, just kind of an important time period for them. But other than that, I knew they were going to be playing a couple of, CCTs and whatnot, but I overall was just kind of looking for progress. And so, I figured when I saw that EG was playing in the CCT event, I just didn't think really too much of it. I just thought hopefully things go well. Hopefully, let's see where they're at. Let's see the ground level, right? Let's see the floor, right? This should be the worst performance we see. and then we'll kind of base this. This will be our basis, and we'll go from there. And in later events, when we see them play on these CCTs and these future CCTs or other little cash cups or whatever, we can see them progress and see hopefully some progress towards what EG can be. So that was my thinking going into these games. That is not the community perception, though. The community decided that it was time to judge them as if this was like them practicing for 4 weeks, and as if um, this is the time to cut people. This is the time to make the hard cuts, to completely change how the team works and functions. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's what people took it as. Because EG lost to Eyeballers in the CCT playoffs that they were invited to. Granted, there was some context at play. Forzy, who I believe used to be playing on fours, maybe. Let's see. I don't want to say that and not be accurate. No, Sinners. Was he playing on Sinners? He was benched on Sinners. Yeah. So he was on Sinners this year. From January 2022 to present, he's on Sinners. I assume this is a player that potentially Nealon is friends with. That's the only thing that I can think of as to how they were able to reach out to this guy to sub. But he substituted for Wiz on the first two maps because Wiz actually had his flight delayed, and so I presume on that third map he had like just gotten there. Maybe I'm wrong, but definitely he didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. So that was the context of why Forzy was playing with them. Everyone was making speculations and rumors. Everybody was calling for Wiz's head after he didn't perform very well in the third map, while Forzy performed pretty darn well in the first two. Doesn't make sense to me. You guys are overreacting. I am totally okay with calling for Wiz's head after you've given the man some time to actually prove himself in a competent system. He has not had that time, nor has he had a competent system. In fact, he has been in the most disorganized situation possible, with an organization that seems hell-bent on destroying young talent's confidence and putting them in the worst possible positions to succeed. Again, I'm talking about the management. I'm not talking about Vorborg. I'm not talking about the coaching staff. I'm talking about the organization and their management. Very strange to me. I don't know why people were calling for Wiz's head. It doesn't make fucking sense. There are about 50 billion fucking reasons as to why removing Wiz from the roster right now would be a terrible fucking decision. But people just want to fucking react. They just react. They see stats, they react. They look at a stat sheet, they go, oh, wow, he performed bad. He must be kicked. Oh, I've seen that X player has performed to this standard over the past 3 months. His rating sucks. Kick him. Without asking questions, without looking at the context, without watching the fucking games. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Anyways, this series, what did the veto pick ban look like? EG removed Vertigo. Expected. Eyeballers removed Nuke. Okay. EG pick Mirage. That seems to be a map that they enjoy picking, that they want to be one of their best maps. Okay. Eyeballers pick Overpass. Thank you for the free layup. We love Overpass. EG removes Anubis. Makes sense. They haven't performed very well on Anubis. Eyeballers remove Ancient because it was either between Ancient and Inferno. Makes sense. EG's a pretty good Ancient team. At least historically, and Refresh has also played Ancient quite a bit. So Inferno was left over. Everybody's favorite map 3. Veto, I think, made sense for both teams. Go to Mirage. They go to Mirage. And EG has a relatively lackluster T side. They got 5 rounds on their T side. I watched this and I was really trying to focus in on EG's style of play while watching this. Their T side in particular. And I just don't really get it. They don't put a lot of mid pressure. in the early round. In fact, a lot of the time, at most they'll send two people mid and send like two ramp, one palace. Um, they'll lurk underpass as well, but they don't put a whole lot of pressure in mid. It didn't happen very frequently at all. On the flip side, Eyeballers frequently was pushing middle on their CT side, trying to get information on what EG's strategy was. And it just felt like a lot of the time EG was just too slow. And it's just been a common thing with EG. They are just very slow when it comes to decision making on hitting bomb sites. And it frequently feels like when they're hitting a bomb site, the enemy team has had enough opportunities to get enough information on knowing what EG is trying to do. They seem like a very readable team in my eyes when I watch them play. Um, and so they, by some grace of God, got 5 rounds on their T side. I don't even know that they deserved 5 rounds on their T side, but they did. And then the CT side, I mean, immediately they lose 5 rounds. They don't get the pistol. They didn't win. They didn't win the pistol on either half. And then once they finally got the money under them and they started winning rounds in a row, they just had to make up so much ground. It would have been really difficult for them to do it all, and it just didn't end up happening. Forzy ended up being the top performer with a 1.15 rating on the map. Breezy with a close second. I will mention Breezy was one of the reasons we even got as many rounds as we did on the T side due to the entry frags that he was getting. He felt like the most impactful player on the server just with the rifle openings that he was creating and the picks he was getting. So personally, although Forzy was the best rated player, I do think Breezy was the most impactful player for EG during this map overall. And it shows on the T side, he had 11 kills on the T side. He had 12 deaths, and that just goes to show how aggressive he was being in trying to get opening picks when EG needed him to. Kind of slowed, and so I don't know what else to say. The CT side felt like the only info plays EG really went for on their CT side was in mid. They didn't really do any like, hey, it's the mid round, so let's get some mid round info. So let's like send two people to get info through A ramp or send two people to get info through B apps. It was mostly pushing top mid or something, and it didn't even happen that often. A lot of the times it felt like they were sitting back, waiting for the enemy team to hit the bomb site. Struggled. They many times they had setups where it was like very unclear as to what information was available to them. Where could Eyeballers go with the rest of the round? It was a very big question mark because Eyeballers was taking mid much more frequently than EG was on their T side. And so it meant that many times EG would sit back on A, sit back on B, and suddenly you're looking at a situation where they don't really know where they should be stacking or where they should be going because they just don't have the information. And I think I would like to see more info plays and more stacks based off of those info plays so that you can try to read what the other opponent, what your opponent is trying to do and have a proper setup for it. So I know it's a very heroic style of thinking, but I just really wish there was some more info gathering on the CT side. It felt like they were sitting back and letting eyeballers do whatever they wanted, and I think that's a big reason as to what cost them during this map. And there's a big contrast with that when you go to Overpass, where on Overpass, EGCT side was phenomenal, and they only lost 3 rounds. They went 12-3 in their first half, and I think a big part of it was just the information that they were getting. Because on Overpass on your CT side, it is required for you to get information in the mid rounds, and I think that EG was doing that in unique ways in terms of their aggression and what information they were trying to get. And this team just performed so much better on this map. This is just our playground. It feels like it's just made for us. Um, Automatic just seems to become just gets that much better playing on this particular map. So this is a map we need to go to. I mean, we've known that for a long time now, but I think a big thing on the CT side that I noticed was just the fact that EG was having to be more aggressive in their information gathering and having more CT-sided setups where they have players playing off of each other on their CT sides, where it felt like on Mirage, it's like CT sides were just kind of like people playing positions as if it was like I don't want to call it matchmaking, but like there's no coordination, no like unique setup where like X player does this and then Y player does this that which counteracts each other and make or like which counterbalances each other, and so that whatever the weakness is in wherever X player is standing, Y player has it covered and they kind of work off of each other. It didn't really feel like that there were too many CT side setups on Mirage, where on Overpass it really felt like that was the case. Um, and so and there were more stacks on CT, and whatnot. So I just think overall we need to take some of that philosophy and use it in our other maps. Um, Going on to Inferno, um, a strong T side, getting 6 rounds on your T side is very good. Um, oh, and let me go back quickly to the Overpass, just to run down the performances. Automatic was by far the best player, not by far, but he was very very good. He was the best player on the team, um, best player on T and CT side. Or I take that back. He was better. He was the best player on CT side he was very much so the best player on CT side. T side, he struggled a little bit. Um, but I think, overall he was very, very good. He did enough work on that CT side to really kind of push us home. Breezy really struggled, overall. Just kind of struggled on this map, 17 and 15. Not amazing, but not terrible either, just kind of average. Um, and I don't know, just overall it was a good map. Refresh had a good performance, so I think that's worth noting. 20 and 17. He had a good, I believe he had a good T side. Yeah, he was our best performer on T side, with a 1.73 rating and 11 kills, 8 deaths. So there you go. Moving on, Inferno. 6 rounds on the T side of Inferno is quite good, and granted that is with the pistol round. Um, But this was the map where Wiz came into the map, or came into the series. This is now without 4Z, and on that T side, Wiz was pretty terrible. He was 3 and 11 on T side, a .42 rating. He was pretty terrible. Breeze was the only player who was positive on the T side, going 12 and 11, which I've just come to expect. Breezy is just naturally the best player to be playing in that entry frag type of role. Just get him aim duels and let him frag, because his mechanics are unreal. Um, Neil and Automatic doing good work, so was Refresh, but just not enough from Wiz. I don't know. Difficult, man. Breeze was our best performer. I think overall in the series, I'd say Breeze was probably our best performer for the whole series. I know he had a really bad overpass, or not a stellar overpass, I should say. But I think his impact on Mirage was undeniable. I think his overpass was okay, and I think his Inferno, just being a catalyst for, finding frags and getting openings and whatnot. He just was very, very good this series overall. Unfortunately, the team didn't do enough. Um, and a lot of people pointed the blame on Wiz. Um, and while I think obviously, yes, Wiz was the poorest performer, um, I don't think this is the time to be giving him the kick him, he's bad, let's replace him, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me. For So I'm gonna go through the reasons right now why removing Wiz in this specifically right now is a fucking stupid decision. Um, Number one, EG has stressed more than any other organization how they care about talent development, and I know they're not good at it. I know they're not good at it, but after everything that Wiz has gone through, getting signed immediately before Blast, getting put in the worst EGPR shit show of all time, having people like GamerDog put an unbelievable amount of pressure on you in the biggest event of your career. You know, um, Being a tier 2 North American opper, having to transition into the tier 1 opping space, international opping space. These are all reasons why a young player is not going to succeed in a, by the way, 3-month time frame. Because you got to remember, he didn't join the beginning of January. He joined at the end of January. It's been roughly a 3-month period in terms of actual events that have been played. Because there's been a lot of time where they haven't really been playing many events. I don't understand why people are going to take this result of all the results and claim that this is why Wiz needs to be removed. It's the first boot camp with the new team. Wiz is late to the boot camp due to flight delay, probably has some severe, or at least some, um, jet lag of some kind. He's being put in a match mid-series, so he's coming in completely cold, and everybody else has been playing for 2 maps. He has a bad performance, and everyone wants him kicked now? Really? Can you guys just be honest and say that you wanted him kicked 2 months ago, or that you never wanted him to be moved up into the main roster at all? He never had a chance to perform. What opportunities has he had where he hasn't been put in positions to fail? Like, here's another thing people don't understand. When you're an opper and a new player just in general, the way for a young player to develop, the ecosystem that you have to have for a young player to develop, is one in which there is a solid foundation. You're able to implement the young player, put them in the positions they want to be put in, and that player having the full confidence that the rest of the team knows what they're doing, can give guidance, has a solid structure, something for a young player to fall back on and allow them to develop their skills, to transition with you want to build that progression over time. You don't want to overload a young player with all of this information on how to play tier 1 Counter-Strike at once. Wiz has not been given that opportunity. This team has been dysfunctional since day 1. He is a tier 2 North American opper being put in tier 1 international Counter-Strike, expected to perform and be one of the best players on the team because he's using the op. Just had the Valorant section. I'm thinking operator. Forgive me. Using the op, the hardest role in tier 1 Counter-Strike in terms of adjusting from tier 2 to tier 1, opping, especially for a North American opper. Extremely difficult for a player like that to do. And he's doing it all within a dysfunctional team. He's trying to do it in a dysfunctional system where there's no layers. There's no time to develop him. He didn't get an off-season to work with the team. That off-season is now, in theory, and they still got to play IEM Dallas in about, I don't know, a month or 2? Month and a half? Like, this guy's been given no sympathy. And, like, look, I am totally okay with telling, hey, look, you should be kicked. If he has been given enough time, been given the right enough time within a good system, a system that's had time to develop, if he does not perform, yes. Yes. But how are we going to sit here and call for somebody's head because he isn't performing to the level that we want them to when the entire team is performing like shit? And it's not because the players are shit. Not in my opinion. I think the talent is there to at least be a decent team, a top 15 team. With how shit CS is at the moment, they should be a top 15 team if they actually live up to the potential of the roster in terms of individual talent. But, what was I trying to say? Oh my god. I'm blanking. I'm totally blanking. I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh my god. Oh, yes. If the whole team is performing like shit, and it's not because the individual players are necessarily shit, or that their potential is no good, right? I think everyone agrees Nealon can become a fantastic IGL. He's very young. He can be a great IGL. Breezy can get back to his mechanical skill is still there. If he gets put in the right system, I think he will flourish. I think, frankly, well, I don't know because it depends on roles and whatnot. But and Team Liquid has Yakindar. But if Yakindar leaves Team Liquid, Liquid is going to be thinking about getting Breezy on their team because Breezy individually and mechanically is still there. So look, I don't question his mechanics. Nealon can be a good IGL. Breezy can be good individually, maybe as an entry frag type player, right? Getting openings for your team, right? Automatic. He's been the best player on this team. Of course he has the potential to get better and become a star player with consistent impact, consistent performances. He can do that if he's given the right system. You know? Refresh. He used to play on the number one team in the world. He's got the potential to be really good, right? He can get back to a good level in Tier 1 Counter-Strike. No question about that. Wiz. The dude has developed, man. Like, I don't understand. Has everyone just forgotten what Wiz looked like when he was picked up? When Carpe Diem was picked up? Compared to where he is, where he was at the end of EG Black? When he was done with EG Black and moved on to the main roster? Did we just forget the development that he had? Where he was trashing Tier 2 teams consistently? Dropping like 1.2, 1.3 ratings? Did we just forget that happened? That just didn't exist? People are acting like Wiz was just like some dude we just signed to the roster because we wanted a North American offer or some shit? Do you just forget that? Do you just throw that away? But then we're going to talk about other players that are on EG Black and act like, well, they're just, of course they're better. Of course they're better. Guys, no shit. Players on EG Black are going to look statistically better than the players on EG Blue when you consider that the teams that they're playing against are completely different stratospheres of talent. You know, you've got EG Black playing Tier 2 NA. You've got the EG main roster playing Tier 1 competition, Tier 2 EU competition at the worst. And EG Black is under a system under Walco that has been being developed for the past 6 to almost a year now. EG Blue, fuck, who the fuck knows, man? I mean, it's been up and down with roster changes left and right. Roster changes that drastically affect how the roster is supposed to play. I just role changes with certain players. Like, dude, I don't know, man. You got like some of you guys got to chill the fuck out with these kick this player, kick that player. I understand as a fan, it is very easy to get emotional over things and get emotional over losses. Believe me, I've watched pretty much most EG games for the past 3 years. It's fucking heartbreaking. It's crazy to me when I think about the fact that we were at one point the number one team in the world, and I remember being in my apartment looking at the screen of ESL 1 Cologne 2020 and thinking, my God, we are just good. We are so good. We've won another event. It's almost getting boring to win. How things have changed. So I get it. But you need to understand, we're talking about a player who has lost a lot of confidence. I, again, won't be shocked if Wiz ends up getting replaced by Junior and Wiz gets put on EG Black. He will find his form again, and he will be what he was at the end of his tenure with EG Black, where he was beating all the top teams. He will get to that point again. His confidence will be back with him, and he will regain that, similar to how Hext has. It will happen, because playing on this main roster these past couple of months must have been absolute hell for a young player. It is the worst possible position you could put young players in to develop. It truly is. And so that's why I'm willing to give Wiz more time. Because a young player wasn't going to develop in that kind of environment these past 3 months. It was never going to happen. What were you expecting out of Wiz? Out of a young guy with all of these things going on? Did you really expect him to be the best performer on the team? Our hope was that he was just going to be serviceable, for fuck's sake, at Blast. If I had known all the shit that was going to happen in the next 3 months regarding the organization and how the team worked and all this other shit, I don't know that I would have expected anything out of him, to be quite honest with you. So, to continue off of this, I think Wiz, personally, I've said this before, I'll stand by it. I'll say it again. I don't want Wiz kicked until the end of the next major in 2024. Because I want to give Wiz the most amount of time to develop. I think it's only fucking fair after the shitty 3-month period that he's been put into, with a massive off-season, with no major in the fall. There is no pressure. There is no pressure to be incredible by the fall. This should give a young player like Wiz, an opera like Wiz, more time to develop, give him more experiences in Tier 2 EU, give him more experience in Tier 1 events that I'm sure ESL will host and maybe even Blast as well, right? Give him more time and experience to develop, get that system under control. Because what people again aren't thinking about is when you have Wiz or when you have an opera and you change your opera, it changes your system, it changes your style of play. You know, um, don't just throw that away and have to restart all over again. If they make a roster move in December, I'll lose my shit. I will lose my shit if they make a roster move in November or December. I will lose my mind. You can't be making roster changes that affect how your system works just a couple months before the major, especially this next one coming up, because it's so long away. People are already going to have things in place and have been building things going into that major. And that's why I don't want them to change things. And in my personal opinion, I don't think they should remove Wiz until the Okay, I think we're back. So like I was saying, um, because justifiably Junior has been spectacular. So let me rehash that because I don't know what got cut out and what stayed. I don't want Wiz to be replaced until the end of the next major in 2024. However, I will not be surprised if Wiz gets removed after IEM Dallas if he does not perform in favor of Junior. Because Junior has been that spectacular on EG Black so far. He's been the best player by far. And he has been one of the best players in North America. So I will not be surprised if Junior gets the call up to the main roster after IEM Dallas if Wiz doesn't perform. I like that in the sense that I do think Junior is a better player as of this current moment. Because again, multiple reasons, but I don't think Wiz has been set up to succeed. And I think Junior has been put in a better system, a better environment. Naturally, he's going to perform better, not to mention he just genuinely has just been better so far. But I hate it because I just feel like it's another example of EG moving a young player up into the main roster, putting him in a bad situation against Tier 1 competition without really ever giving that player any time to breathe. And they keep doing it. They did it with Hext. They're doing it with Wiz now. They're kind of doing it with Nealon to some degree, but Nealon's obviously not going to get removed because obviously he's the in-game leader and we're going to want to stick with him for a while, but he hasn't been put in very good situations to succeed with all the roster moves and role changes that have been going on. And it just speaks of just these guys don't know how to develop talent. They're not putting their talent that they're trying to develop in the best positions to succeed, at least when it comes to the main roster. They completely got rid of the EG White team. So I just don't know. I feel like that's just a bad look. So I could see that happening, but I don't entirely like it. I think it makes your ceiling higher, sure, but I just don't. I don't like it from the perspective of talent development and how you had talent that you were developing. You moved them up too quickly. I don't even know that you moved up Wiz too quickly. I just think that you put him into the main roster in too short of a notice before his first event. You needed to announce that shit way sooner. Give Wiz some time to mentally prepare, get him used to his teammates, get some extra time to practice, whatever. I just don't think they did it in the best way. It just shows that EG sucks at developing talent so far. They haven't been able to successfully do it yet, in my eyes. So that would frustrate me because I don't think Wiz has had when I would look back on the tenure that Wiz has had on the main roster for this stint, and I would say that he just never really had a good opportunity to succeed. He was never put in the good positions, and what are you supposed to do at that point? It's tough to really ask of him to succeed in some massive way when you never put him in the right positions in the first place. In fact, you put him in positions that he was bound to fail. It just frustrates me. Now, some people were saying, fuck bringing in Junior, bring in an international opper. Now that is a moronic opinion, because then we would have to play in the EU RMR. Guys, if we can't qualify for the qualifier in the North American RMR, let's not be going to Europe. And if we're going to go to fucking Europe, I'm sorry, but if we're going to take this path and we're going to use this logic, then I would like to cut Nealon. I would like to cut fucking Refresh. I would like to fucking whoever this opera is that we're signing that's going to be this international opera better be a fucking amazing international opera. We better be getting the fucking works for those 3 players. And then you can keep Breezy and Automatic. Keep Breezy Automatic, get rid of those 3, get rid of those 2, sign 3 new players that are amazing players, and maybe you have something there. Now you won't do that, obviously. That would never happen because EG is in with how they've been acting in terms of the recession and the roster moves they've made in other esports, League of Legends, Dota 2, Valorant. They're going to want to sign the young players that they claim they want to talent develop. In reality, it's because they're in a recession and they don't want to have to spend a lot of money because they're losing a shit ton of sponsors. So that's never going to happen. So don't fucking tell me to go sign an international offer. It's not viable. Now, if you want to make the question of why sign Refresh when you could have signed an international offer and then moved up one of your riflers, I agree with that. I do think that it does make sense why they signed Refresh from the veteran guidance perspective, experience perspective, right? That all makes sense. But it is true. What is one of the weakest roles in North America right now? Opping. So why don't you sign an international opper on your main roster and then get, because the up and coming, players are all, riflers. And then you can move up some young riflers, right? You can get, you would instead of, you could get a experience, you get a really good upper tier 2, tier 1 international opper. You get you can get a good young rifler like George or Hexed. You get George or Hexed, and then you have Automatic, you have Breezy, and then you can have an in-game leader. Obviously they didn't like that in the sense that well, I know, I think at that point you could probably still keep Nealon because you would have 2 young players and the young rifler and Nealon. Presumably the opper would be someone who's good enough. You get like an Oscar, very experienced. Kenny S. I don't know. Um, Malik, I'm sure has a good relationship with them. I think that could have been a viable option, maybe a better option overall in terms of developing talent and whatnot. I think that's a valid question to pose, but it's nothing. It's nothing that they can do about now. They're not going to get rid of. They're not going to get rid of Refresh anytime soon. They just signed him, so that's not really a valid point to make anymore. In terms of what to expect for the future of this team. So at this point, what are you going to do? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to sign an international opera right about now. Unfortunately, based on the decisions they've already made to, they're already in that sunk cost fallacy at this point. They can't go back. Um, yeah. So I'm just getting a little frustrated with the whole conversation around EG. I've posted on Twitter. The conversation seems very stale to me at this point in time. I'm just explaining the same reasons over and over again why you shouldn't kick Wiz, why the talent development sucks. That the EG needs more time. They need to develop more layers. People are just criticizing them. They've received more criticism during their time period where they weren't supposed to be competing in events, but then somehow magically got into the major. And then they got more criticism for just online little cash cups and stuff than they did when they were playing Pro League, Blast, IEM Katowice. Nobody criticized them during Katowice at all, but suddenly, or I mean they did, but not to the extent that they have for CCT and the cash cups and shit. And it's why? I'm pretty sure Sprout at the time was just as good competition as fucking Illuminar and all these other teams. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why people just are criticizing EG when they get a new player who's on high ping and they've just came they're all they were all just coming back from flights, and it's just people are criticizing this roster when they don't deserve the criticism. Save the criticism for IEM Dallas. IEM Dallas is when they deserve to be criticized. And they deserve to be criticized in they play a CCT that's pretty close to the start of Dallas or something. Criticize them. Sure. It's close to Dallas. You should be performing better. Sure. If that's a sign of what happens in Dallas, that's a problem. Sure. But not right now, guys. They just started their fucking boot camp. Let them cook. Let them cook a little bit. Take our time. Don't overreact to every fucking result. What's the point? You're just wasting your breath. And you're not only wasting your breath, if you're saying shit like kick whiz, he's a bot, blah, 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 you're also damaging the man's confidence. Like, why would you want to do that? He's on the roster right now. Deal with it. Even if you don't like it, show them your fucking support. And once they deserve the criticism, give it to them. But this ain't the time. This ain't the time. With all that being said, EG will be playing in CCT West Europe Series 3. They have been invited to the playoff stage, as they typically do, because they're EG. They just get, they just get to do that. You can question that if you want. I would, but whatever. Money talks. Or being a partnered team talks. And yeah, they're going to be playing LDLC at 11 o'clock Eastern. 11 o'clock Eastern on Monday. For context, EG is ranked 46th in the world. LDLC is ranked 73rd in the world. Afro is on that team. If you guys remember Afro from when he used to be, I believe, on Falcons, I think, or Heat, one of the two. It's a French team, essentially. He's also their top performer as of right now. Actually, I take it back. EG is ranked 50th in the world. LDLC is ranked 68th. In terms of map pools, looking at it real quick, LDLC. Oh, I just voted for LDLC. Whoops, my bad. LDLC. When I look at their map pool stats, they like Ancient, they like Anubis, they seem to like Overpass a little bit. Yeah, they like Overpass. Inferno as well. They have a lot of maps played. They don't like Vertigo, so we share Permaban and Vertigo probably. Or no, that's not true. What is their permaban? Mirage is their permaban. So that hurts us. Yeah, it actually kind of hurts our map veto because they're going to permaban one of our better, or one of the maps we like to play, and we're going to permaban a map that they don't really care about. So that kind of sucks. We might see an overpass. I reckon we're probably going to see an ancient game. Unless we decide to ban it, but I don't know that we will because we're pretty decent on Ancient. I'm sure we'd rather play Ancient than Anubis, so we'll probably end up playing Ancient, maybe some Overpass and Inferno. If I had to predict the map pool, I'd say Ancient, Overpass, Inferno. But we'll see how it goes when we get there. And yeah, should be interesting. It is a best of 3, and it starts at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Or if you're watching this on Monday, starts 11 a.m. today. So if you are watching this and it's too late, I'm sorry. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I don't really have any expectations other than to see them improve, hopefully, and see if there's any new layers to their gameplay. Really just understanding and watching their gameplay, see if there's anything developing from a strategical standpoint, see how players perform, whatnot. Now that Wiz has had some time to get used to, to get rid of the jet lag, maybe he can perform a little bit better this series. And just see how it goes. He's got a tough matchup in Afro. It kind of disappoints me that I have to say that's a tough matchup, but he is their best player, so I'll just say it how it is. And we'll see how they do. But overall, guys, that's all I have to say for EG this week. I will not be posting a video next week because of like I said before, I will be going to my sister's graduation, so I will not have the time to post a video next week. But I appreciate all of you listening. Unfortunately, like I said, Kurrent wasn't able to join me today, but hopefully in 2 weeks from now, that will be possible, and we'll be able to talk about hopefully a couple more games. Hopefully EG plays more events, like small events, other than just this CCT event. I presume they will if there's other CCD events, or if there's like a cash cup or something, but we'll see. And yeah, thank you guys all for listening. Check out the Evil Geniuses: A Fall from Grace video that I posted a couple days ago on my YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about Evil Geniuses and why why I have and many people who are experienced and veterans in the scene have such high expectations for Evil Geniuses as an organization. And also check out Richard Lewis's articles discussing the things that have been going on within EG's management and how they treat their employees, and why Nicole LaPointe Jameson is an absolute clown. And not only is she a clown, that's a nice way to put it, she's not a very good person. I could say other words. I'm choosing to hold them in. But she is a very bad person. Go read the articles. You'll see exactly what I mean. And yeah, hopefully you guys have a great week, and I will catch you all in the next Bleed Blue episode.